Hi guys, it is Kate here for the Victorian Literature Tag in honor of Victober. And I am so excited to be one of the co-hosts, and I just am so excited about Victorian literature and to tell you guys all about it. There are 10 questions and then a few bonus questions. So the first question is the first piece of Victorian literature that you've ever read. And the first one that I read was in my senior year of high school, and that was Jane Eyre. I had watched the 2006, that's what it is, 2006 miniseries featuring Toby Stephens and Ruth Wilson. It's about 4 hours and I highly recommend it. And I do really appreciate it, especially because it enticed me to read this. And the first time I read it, I think I definitely enjoyed it, but I didn't quite process it or enjoy it as much as I did when I reread it this past January. But it did definitely kind of pique my interest in the Victorian era and Victorian literature and Queen Victoria and all of that, everything Victorian. So I credit, that miniseries and then reading Jane Eyre for doing that. The next one is your favorite Victorian novel, and I don't know if I could ever pick a favorite, but I'll show you two of my favorites, and the first is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, and I read this maybe 5 years ago, and it just so captivated me. I will link my whole Game Changer Books video on this, just the art of plot and unfolding the story, and it just absolutely, I was just enamored with it. And just seeing how Dickens had so craftily plotted out every plot point. And it's one of his shorter ones, so I think that speaks to that he maybe more knew what he wanted to do with the story when he started and had the ending in mind. And then another one that I do talk about a fair amount on this channel, and I talk about classics, is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. And the thing that just spoke to me so much about this book is the heroine of Molly Gibson. She, to me, is just such a full-bodied and well-fleshed-out character, and to see her go through circumstances that are not at all her choosing and really hard is just really special, and to see her growth in that. And I just absolutely love Wives and Daughters, and it's my favorite Elizabeth Gaskell. The next question is your favorite Victorian author, and that would be Elizabeth Gaskell, because the three that I've read from her so far are North and South, Cranford, and this, and they're all so very different, and so I really think that speaks to her skill. And she has such a wide range of characters, but they all to me are just such full-bodied, fleshed out characters, and I just absolutely love her writing. And I think she's kind of Jane Austen, but maybe with a little bit more heart and emotional depth and also social commentary. So I think she's just kind of the best of both worlds, and I really love her. The next is favorite Victorian literary couple, so I have to bring this book up again, and I will just take a leaf out of Katie from Books and Things, her book, and I'll just say Molly Gibson, the heroine, and her gentleman, because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but they, to me, are such a couple that suit each other. And I just love that over the course of this book, they really have a friendship first and then a romance later develops, and they have such a high regard and respect for one another. But they also really enjoy each other's company, and they've really grown a lot as people before they are finally together as a couple. And I just think they're a really special pairing. The next question is your favorite Victorian villain. Now, I actually, in the Victorian literature I have read, there aren't all that many villains, and so I had to think about this a little while, but I will say that I do really appreciate Bill Sikes in Oliver Twist. I know a lot of Dickens fans, this is not their favorite, but this was my first Dickens to read, and it spurred me on to read other Dickens, so it has a very special place in my heart. And I just think Bill Sikes is just a great villain in that he's paired against this little angelic, cherubic Oliver Twist, and just little innocent Oliver, and so he seems extra evil, and he has this, this dog that he has trained to be vicious, and so I think he makes a great Victorian villain. But as I read more Victorian literature, I may feel differently, but for now, I'm going to go with Bill Sikes. The next question is your favorite Victorian book where someone dies of consumption, aka Victorian novel disease, because if you have read any amount of Victorian novels, you will see characters die of consumption, and it might not always be called that, but there are lots of mysterious deaths or deaths that take a long time, people that are really sick for a long time. And so I'm not going into any details, but I'll just say North and South character dies of consumption in this. And it's really, really heartbreaking, but realistic, as were the conditions for many people at this time. The next question is the longest Victorian novel I've read, and I'm pretty sure, you know, different editions have different page numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens. This edition is 985 pages, so that's pretty substantial and pretty long, but it was definitely worth it. I think classics are just rewarding in a way that modern literature just can't be. And so striving towards the end, I did this as a buddy read with Amanda Center, and it was definitely worth the long haul. The next question, question 8, is a Victorian author or book you feel is underrated? And this is one that I haven't read, actually, and unfortunately I didn't remember it until after I had just had my whole Victober TBR planned out, and that is The Light That Failed by Rudyard Kipling. I heard about this from Aria Mia Loberti. I'll link her channel down below. She's not as active now, but she might be in the future. Anyhow, she talked about this book and really liked it, and it's about a soldier who comes back and his vision is gone and kind of how he copes with that. And it looks like it's a very short book, especially for Victorian novels, which are longer. It looks to be only about 250 pages, and it's adult fiction, which he is not as known for. So this is one that I definitely like to give a try. The next question is the most beautiful edition of a classic that you have. So I have two to show, and the first is Great Expectations, and this is a Knickerbocker classic, and I had seen these kind of here and there on BookTube, and but I wasn't sure when I saw it in the bookstore, and then I had heard they actually are pretty floppy. So when I do get around to rereading Great Expectations, I really look forward to this. But the paper quality is really nice and stiff, and I just think it's nice that it has some of the flexibility of a paperback, but it also has some of the sturdiness of a hardcover. So that's one I'd like to show you. And then the other one is this Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition of Middlemarch by George Eliot. I, a while back, did a video on classics book covers and how a lot of them just show a painting of a woman, and it's just very ambiguous and it doesn't tell you anything about the plot, and it makes classics look boring. So I really love this kind of feel to a classic cover. So it has, you know, a pretty color, this kind of blue-green, and then the gold foil lettering I think is really neat. And then this whole book, you know, is set around the landscape of Middlemarch, and so it's got this hand that is a map of Middlemarch, and I just think it's really beautiful. It has French flaps and deckled edges, which I personally am a fan of. And the next question is 3 unread Victorian books you would like to try. So the first one that I'm really sad I didn't include in my TBR, and maybe somehow I could fit it in, and that is The Light That Failed by Rudyard Kipling. The next one that I am going definitely to remedy with Katie from Books and Things over Victober, and that is The Woodlanders by Thomas Hardy. I have only read Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy, and that's very short and different than a lot of his books, and so I would love to give Thomas Hardy a try, especially when I've heard that his descriptions of nature are really beautiful, and his also are shorter books, so as opposed to Dickens, who is just, his are so lengthy, so I appreciate the shortness of that. And then finally, Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Ange at Beyond the Pages and Yamini at The Skeptical Reader, and Alicia, I'm pretty sure Alicia at Ex Libre also read it, and they read Bleak House, and I think some of them read it in like 3 days, and it just, they said it did not feel long at all, and they just absolutely loved it. I think it's some of their favorites now, and I really want to read this. I love Dickens. I want to read all his books, so this is the one that's kind of, I have the itch to read, and I think in December, actually, it would be a really cozy December read. So those are all of the original questions for the tag, and then there are several bonus questions, and those are your favorite Bronte novel, favorite Dickens novel, Hardy novel, favorite Trollope, and favorite Gaskell. So I will leave those, maybe I would do another video on those, but if you have read lots of Victorian literature and you would like to answer those questions, you are more than welcome to do so. So I thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you guys for another video soon.